penny for your thoughts." "Pennies," he grumbled, receiving change back from the clerk. "Why are we still even using these things?" He wanted to just leave them on the counter, but he stuffed them in his pocket without thinking. He needed a miracle, not a pocket full of change. He'd been replaced at work by a younger, cheaper version, and he wasn't getting much interest in all the resumes he was sending out. It was humiliating enough to have an interview with someone half his age who barely knew how to conduct an interview, let alone to hear nothing back. Yet this was his pattern week after week, month after month. "Indeed, indeed," he muttered. His wife was the only good thing in his life. She was his rock. He thought for sure there were times he heard her crying in the bathroom, but she never let any of that show around him. She was always building him up, encouraging him about the perfect job that was out there for him. She'd tell him how much she's praying for him. Yeah, like that ever works. I mean, if God cared at all, would I be going through any of this, he thought, and occasionally said out loud. But she never let that stop her. What he thought would just be a quick hiccup between jobs was turning into more of a long-term belch. And not just the polite little Arabic thanks for a good meal belch, but more of a carefully crafted high school belch. You know, the ones where you can recite the whole alphabet? Except in this case, you could be reciting the collected works of William Shakespeare. Why was this happening? He wasn't such a bad guy. How could he get shafted this bad? Of course, the bills were starting to pile up. The inconvenience of having to cancel cable and call utilities to ask for lenience was beginning to turn into losing their house could be a possibility. Homeless? Really? How could that even happen? Those thoughts tortured him at night and cost him what little sleep he might have gotten. Swallowed up by anger and self-pity, and if he were honest, cold, hard fear. He didn't even know how to ask for help. They still went to church. He even worked up the courage to pull his pastor aside one Sunday and ask if the church ever loaned money to people who were going through a hard time. You know, he said, maybe just for people who've been regular givers for years. No, the pastor dismissed his question. If we did that, everybody would want help, and we just can't afford that. I'll pray for you, he said as he went on to the next hand to shake. Thanks for nothing, God, he started to rant. You did all those miracles in the Bible, but when I need help, zilch. What happened to us getting all our needs met? You know, where Jesus said, seek first the kingdom of God and his righteousness, and all these things will be added. His voice trailed off as he broke down in tears. It was almost like a little boy in the lap of his dad, kicking and crying and telling him how unfair he is. But then suddenly the boy realizes how totally selfish he was, how terrified he was of any suffering, and of course, how little he'd actually been seeking God or his kingdom. He couldn't wait to get back in the car and begin apologizing to his wife. It took pretty much the whole drive home for him to cover his experience in Daddy's lap and to ask her forgiveness for all the fear and selfishness. She was so excited and relieved. She forgave him completely, and he promised to start praying with her again. When they got home, she went into the bedroom to change for fixing lunch. She tidied up the dresser a bit and noticed something a bit odd. She called him into the room and asked him to take a look. Something wrong with this penny? She asked, pointing to the change on the dresser. It just looks weird. Wow, I never noticed that, but you're right, he agreed. The writing on it was like it was double stamped or something. I'll bet that's worth something. And so it was. A quick visit to a coin shop on Monday showed that particular misstamped penny to be worth over $300,000. Picture with me the next millisecond in this man's mind. The avalanche of thoughts that suddenly engulfed him. Every fear was instantly revealed as a lie and disappeared. The doubts, the cynicism, the anger, the self-pity, all immediately exposed as complete lack of faith, just vanished with an embarrassing ease. He not only saw God's provision, but had to admit that he complained about it when he got it, and that it had been sitting on his dresser for weeks. His childish heart was so overwhelmed that he promised to never ever doubt God again. Yeah, like that ever works.